For more than 2 decades, the United States has been accused of shaping global politics through covert and overt regime change operations. From Iraq and Libya to Venezuela and Iran, presidents from both parties have launched military actions, airstrikes, and covert missions, sometimes without formal congressional approval, sparking debates about executive power and international law. But today, the stakes are higher than ever. As tensions between the United States, Israel, and Iran escalate into open conflict, many analysts are asking the same question. Is this another chapter in the long history of American regime change strategy? In this video, we'll break down the timeline from the Iraq invasion and the Libya intervention to recent operations in Venezuela and the current Iran conflict, and examine how these decisions were made, who authorized them, and what they mean for the future of global power. Let's start. In 1998, the U.S. passed the Iraq Liberation Act, making it official policy to remove Saddam Hussein and support Iraqi opposition groups. After George W. Bush was elected, tensions escalated, and following the 9/11 attacks, the administration claimed Saddam had ties to al-Qaeda and was secretly producing weapons of mass destruction, claims later found to be inconclusive. In 2002, Iraq was labeled part of the axis of evil, and Congress passed the Iraq Resolution, giving the president authority to use force. The Iraq War began in March 2003, leading to Saddam Hussein's capture, trial, and execution, while U.S. forces faced a prolonged insurgency. When Saddam Hussein was executed in 2006, Iraq lost a strong, if brutal, central authority. His removal created a power vacuum and deepened sectarian divides between Shia and Sunni communities. Without a stable government, extremist groups gained influence. Disillusioned Sunnis, feeling marginalized, provided fertile ground for insurgent movements to grow. This instability eventually allowed the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or ISIL, to emerge, turning Iraq's power vacuum into a breeding ground for one of the world's deadliest extremist groups. The U.S. withdrew in 2011, but returned in 2014 to combat the rise of ISIL, with the military's combat mission officially ending on December 9, 2021. 2 decades of conflict reshaped Iraq and left a lasting mark on U.S. foreign policy. In 2011, during the Libyan civil war, the Obama administration launched U.S. airstrikes against Muammar Gaddafi's forces without explicit approval from Congress. The strikes aimed to protect civilians and support NATO efforts after Gaddafi's crackdown on protesters. The intervention sparked debate over presidential war powers, as critics argued the Constitution requires Congress to authorize military action. The U.S. played a key role in the NATO-led campaign, helping rebels eventually topple Gaddafi's regime. But questions about executive authority and congressional oversight remain a major point of discussion. The 2011 Libya airstrikes highlighted the tension between swift military action and the limits of presidential power. In 2025 and early 2026, President Donald Trump publicly warned Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro to crack down on drug cartels and curb expanding influence from China and Russia, especially in Venezuela's massive oil sector. Ties between Washington and Caracas deteriorated sharply as the U.S. accused Maduro's government of drug trafficking and hostile foreign alignments, and threatened stronger action. After months of pressure, including strikes on suspected cartel networks, the U.S. launched a bold military operation in January 2026. Elite U.S. forces struck targets in Caracas and captured Maduro and his wife. They were flown to the United States to face criminal charges, including narcoterrorism, a move that shocked the world and raised questions about international law and congressional authority. The dramatic operation marked one of the most aggressive U.S. foreign interventions in decades, driven by anti-drug aims, strategic oil interests, and a broader effort to reshape influence in the Western Hemisphere. On February 28, 2026, the Middle East entered one of the most dangerous moments in modern history. In a coordinated operation, the United States and Israel launched a massive military strike against Iran, targeting nuclear facilities, missile bases, and military command centers across the country. Within days, the conflict escalated dramatically. Airstrikes hit major Iranian cities. Retaliatory missile attacks shook the Persian Gulf. Global oil prices surged, and the world began asking one terrifying question. Is this the beginning of a major regional war, or even World War III? Let's begin. For years, tensions between Iran, Israel, and the United States had been building. The central issue was Iran's nuclear program and its expanding ballistic missile capabilities. Israel has repeatedly warned that Iran is moving closer to developing nuclear weapons, a threat it considers existential. However, Iran strongly denies these accusations, insisting that its nuclear program is intended only for peaceful and civilian purposes, such as energy production and medical research. According to reports by the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, Iran has enriched uranium up to 60% purity, which is considered near weapons grade. Nuclear weapons typically require uranium enriched to about 90%. Despite these concerns, the IAEA has said there is no confirmed evidence that Iran is currently building a nuclear weapon. Iran maintains that its nuclear activities are within its rights under international agreements and insists its program is strictly for civilian use. Meanwhile, tensions between Iran, Israel, and Western powers continue, with the international community closely monitoring developments in Iran's nuclear program. Behind the scenes, diplomatic negotiations were taking place, but these talks were extremely fragile. In early 2026, diplomats from the United States and Iran attempted to revive negotiations aimed at limiting Iran's nuclear activities. However, the talks collapsed over three major issues. 1. Missile restrictions. The U.S. demanded that Iran limit its ballistic missile program, which could potentially deliver nuclear warheads. Iran refused. Tehran argued that missiles were essential for national defense. 2. Nuclear inspection demands. Western countries demanded stricter international inspections of Iranian nuclear sites. Iran rejected unlimited inspections, claiming they violated its sovereignty. In June 2025, Israel launched attacks on Iranian nuclear sites, and the U.S. later struck three facilities, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. After the attacks, Iran's parliament voted to suspend cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, accusing the agency of failing to condemn the strikes. As a result of the suspension, IAEA inspectors eventually left Iran, and inspections of nuclear facilities were halted. 3. Regional influence. Another major sticking point was Iran's support for pro-Iran armed groups and governments across the Middle East like the Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, and Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Washington and Israel demanded that Iran reduce support for these regional allies. Iran refused. By February 2026, negotiations had effectively collapsed. According to analysts, Israel concluded that diplomacy had failed, and the military option was back on the table. This long diplomatic back and forth between Iran and Israel eventually escalated into open conflict, and now the war is unfolding in real time. Despite facing intense pressure and attacks, many Iranians appear determined to resist, even with their supreme leader not visibly present among them during this critical moment. But the bigger question remains: how long can Iran sustain a war on multiple fronts, with tensions not only involving Israel, but also several Gulf countries and the indirect pressure of global superpowers? The situation has become far more complex than a simple regional conflict. Wars are not fought on the battlefield alone. They are fought through economies, alliances, resources, and endurance. And in this case, Iran's ability to continue depends on how long its economy, military supply chains, and regional alliances can hold under mounting pressure. So the real question is not just who will win, but who can last the longest. In the next video, we'll dive into another critical factor that could shake the global economy: the Strait of Hormuz, and the potential oil crisis that could impact the entire world. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that breakdown.